What is up, everybody? Back in a studio setting, still in the hotel room. NFL owners' meetings here in Phoenix have wrapped up. We learned a lot over the last couple of days about the league, about the 49ers, about the 49ers quarterback room. That was the main point of topic. So we're going to go through everything, open the floor up to your questions, and just have some fun with this before I get back on a plane tomorrow. And yes, I promised to let you know how the bachelor party in Vegas went toward the end of this video. I don't want to bore the people that just came here for football with that. But I have a couple cool videos that will show you. None of the bad stuff in the bachelor party. We're only going to see some of the stuff from the Circa Sportsbook. But anyway, it is time to wrap up the 2022. We're in 2023 already. Unbelievable. The 2023 March NFL annual meetings. 49ers were out there with John Lynch, general manager, coach Kyle Shanahan. Jed York was there, and so was Parag Marathe, 49ers chief strategist, does all the salary cap stuff, leads that for the 49ers. They have a lot of other guys in that department. I'm actually going to be highlighting how the 49ers have been able to construct something that is still showing to be really sustainable. They've been doing a fascinating job at building and maintaining their powerful roster, and they're going to try to take another bite out of the apple this next year. By bite out of the apple, they're trying to win the Super Bowl. They're trying to eat the whole apple. That's going to be coming up this next season. But, I think the owners' meetings are always a good chance to reset in between free agency and the draft. So you're closing the first and second waves of free agency and opening draft season. It's going to be April. The draft is at the end of the month. And the draft is the way that you fill out your 90-man roster. The 49ers currently have 64 spots filled. So rudimentary math tells me they got 36 more signings to do. That might be bad math. 26. That's embarrassing. See, I do write about the salary cap a lot, but sometimes my math really does suck. So my rudimentary math is embarrassing. 90 minus 64 is going to be 26. 26 spots left. I knew that 36 was a little bit too much. But anyway, I would say on draft weekend, which is the 11 picks the 49ers have, assuming they keep them all, and the undrafted free agency period right after, I'd say 20 to 23 of the remaining 26 spots will be filled. And then about 3 to 6 of the remaining 26 spots will be filled with veteran signings. The 49ers have already inked a handful of veteran free agents, and I would expect only a handful more to join this season before the rookies fill out that 90-man roster. Now, you talk about money. Before the owners' meetings, I discussed the money situation. The 49ers have about $5 million in salary cap space to continue working with moving forward. Anyway, let's go through some of this stuff. This was the article that I wrote today. 7 49ers takeaways from the heavily focused NFL owners' meetings, the heavily QB-focused NFL owners' meeting. I'm copying and pasting that link. It is going to go into the comment section. And I already see people talking some shit right here. Journalist, not a mathematician. Well, I do cover the salary cap, and I'd say that I cover it. Jason Hurley does a great job. Why don't we shout out to him? He's got a Twitter at 49ers cap. But out of the, people that have 49ers accounts that are writing articles about everything, I might be the only person actually covering the salary cap in any kind of depth. I struggle with the math sometimes, but I have spreadsheets. I have calculators to do what my brain can't. And I try to give you that cap coverage as closely as possible. So I do appreciate a little good-natured ribbing while you're here. Smash that like button. That is what Math said. And you can call me a mathamernalist because that's mathematician and journalist. I get it. Funny. Good stuff. All right. Anyway, going back to the 49ers owners meetings recap, the wrap-up of everything, and a look at the article up on your screen. 7 49ers takeaways from the heavily QB-focused NFL owners meeting. So I'm going to talk about some of these up on the screen. One, the third quarterback rule was tabled. It wasn't rejected. It was tabled. The third quarterback rule is something that existed in NFL from 1991 all the way to 2011. In 1991, we had the body bag game. That was Washington at Philadelphia. Buddy Ryan was the coach of the Eagles, and Buddy Ryan was taunting Washington before they even showed up at the old Veterans Stadium, saying that they're going to have to leave in body bags because the Eagles would injure so many of their players. This was obviously a different era of NFL football. Well, what ended up happening is that a lot of Washington players, like 11 players, exited the game with injuries, dirty times in the NFL. And after each subsequent injury, the Eagles would taunt Washington and say, "Oh, you guys, do you need more body bags? Because we got more. This is the body bag game." During that game where Washington lost so many players, they also lost their two active quarterbacks. Brian Mitchell was a running back for Washington at the time, ended up having to play quarterback in the second half. He completed a few passes, but needless to say, the Eagles beat Washington in what was later known from that point forward as the body bag game. Well, so fast forward to 2023, January 29th, 2023. Same thing happened to the 49ers, except for in the NFC Championship game. Body bag language wasn't applied, but the 49ers lost both active quarterbacks, and they had to move on to playing a running back at the QB position. Christian McCaffrey tried to throw the ball. I know Purdy came back in, but that doesn't really count, does it? Anyway, the 1991 game triggered the NFL into adopting a new rule called the third quarterback rule. So a team wouldn't have to undergo what Washington did against the Eagles in running out of quarterbacks. And the third quarterback rule was simple. It said, if both of your first two quarterbacks are hurt, you could put an emergency QB into the game, and that emergency QB won't take up a roster spot. But that QB can only come into the game if the other, ahead of the fourth quarter, if the other two QBs are already out. Okay, so there's limitations to this rule. If that emergency QB comes into the game earlier, before the fourth quarter, then you can't return any of the other two quarterbacks. So you can't use it as a third quarterback just because, everybody else is struggling. You use it as an actual injury disaster mitigator. The third quarterback rule, as they called it, existed for 20 years in the NFL. It was probably most famously used in the 2010 season NFC Championship game between the Bears and the Packers. Jay Cutler and one other Bears quarterback hurt. They invoked the third quarterback rule. Bears still lost to Green Bay in the NFC title game. That was the only year that Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl, by the way. He went on to the Super Bowl, and I believe they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. But it was invoked by the losing team in the NFC Championship game, and then never heard from again up until the whole reproposal that we've seen here lately, because the new collective bargaining agreement in the 2011 offseason that caused a little bit of a lockout, right, during that offseason. That was when Richard Sherman was a rookie. The new collective bargaining agreement scuttled the third quarterback rule. And Kyle Shanahan has said, he was a coordinator at the time, he said that made coaches nervous at the time, but they figured, maybe we'll get lucky and we'll never have to find out what happens when you run out of two quarterbacks, because the owners, in essence, were probably too cheap to have that third quarterback rule in the books. If you have a third QB on the active roster, even if he doesn't count against the roster, he's going to be commanding at least a minimum salary. And that's, probably around $1 million, maybe even more, given the market for the quarterback position per team. So that could be $32 million around the league, at least. So that third quarterback rule is expensive. NFL did away with it. And we move forward without any team really running into deep trouble until the 49ers ran into deep trouble in the game that I just talked about at Philadelphia, of all places, close to the side of the old body bag game in 1991, but at a new stadium at Lincoln Financial Field in the NFC Championship game. Anyway, I hope you like that little bit of history, because that little bit of history is what has set the table for this offseason. 49ers ran out of QBs in the NFC title game. Detroit, of all teams, is the one that proposed the reintroduction of the third quarterback rule. And today at the NFL owners meetings, it was announced that owners had tabled the bid from Detroit. Why? Well, because apparently there was debate about the money. And by that, I mean there was debate about whether the third quarterback would be on active rosters or if the third quarterback would be flexed up from practice squad. Active roster minimum, close to $1 million. Practice squad minimum, around $200,000. So, you could say these NFL owners, they shouldn't be cheap. Maybe they are being cheap in this situation, right? But the matter of $800,000 per team per year, I guess, has been enough debate that there wasn't even a vote on this, that this got tabled. They can pass this reproposal in May when the NFL spring meeting happens toward the end of May. So it's not completely dead yet, but it's been tabled for now. And it's going to be interesting how this impacts the 49ers plans, because as you know, the 49ers have been building up quarterback option power as diligently as possible. They brought in Sam Darnold on top of Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. And today, Kyle Shanahan talked about the fact that the 49ers will very likely bring in a fourth quarterback on draft weekend, either through the draft or an undrafted free agency. This is all stuff that I predicted over the past couple of weeks. It's coming to fruition now. So the 49ers are going to have four quarterbacks in the building over the course of the year. And obviously, if the third quarterback room for the third quarterback rule does exist, if they do pass this rule come May at the next opportunity to pass it, it will be much easier for the 49ers to navigate with the quarterbacks that they've stockpiled on the roster, right? Even if Brock Purdy ends up being healthy at the start of the regular season, he could be QB1. Theoretically, Trey Lance could be QB2. Maybe Sam Darnold beats him out. He could be QB2. And then the third quarterback that doesn't count against the limit but still on the active roster due to the reintroduction of the third quarterback rule can be the third quarterback in that three-way battle. And then the 49ers can rest a lot easier by having three of these guys on the roster, but they don't have to take away that valuable roster spot for that third quarterback position. Now, even if the third quarterback rule remains tabled or is rejected, the 49ers can still carry three quarterbacks on their 53-man roster. And that's something that I predict they might do anyway, because they're so scarred by what happened in Philadelphia. And they realize that having three quarterbacks on the 53-man roster last season is what saved the season, right? It was an unusual step for Kyle Shanahan to carry three instead of two at the start of last season. But he had Trey Lance. They're obviously going to carry him given the investment last season. They got Jimmy Garoppolo on the cheap, so they're obviously going to carry him. And then they said, well, Brock Purdy's been too impressive throughout training camp and the preseason. We can't expose him to waivers. We're going to create an extra spot for him. So the 49ers carried Lance, Garoppolo, and Brock Purdy last year. Three quarterbacks, took away a spot elsewhere on the 53-man roster, but the 49ers lived with it. It ended up saving the season. They wish they would have carried four by the end of the season and then NFC Championship game. Obviously, they're not going to do that, but I think that carrying three is a distinct possibility. Now, Shanahan talked a little bit today about maybe not doing that, but I'm not so sure that it's a good idea to not do it. I think that this year the 49ers are going to want to carry three. I mean, because they have three valuable QBs on the roster. People will talk about trading Trey Lance out all day, and that's the next thing I'm going to talk about. I don't necessarily think he's out of favor, though. And even, if he isn't held in as high of a regard as Brock Purdy or Sam Darnold, chances are, based on the 49ers' recent history, that you're going to have to use three quarterbacks over the course of a season, especially since one of them might not be healthy until week 4, even late. Who knows what's going to happen with Brock Purdy? The 49ers won't know until early June. So to me, it seems that the 49ers are headed toward carrying three quarterbacks again, and they would really benefit from a third quarterback rule, but it's tabled right now. And if they have to carry three quarterbacks even without the presence of this rule, well, I think the 49ers might just have to, take one for the team here. Literally, take one for the team. Take one extra quarterback for the team. You might hurt your roster elsewhere, but I think it will be worth it. All right, on to Trey Lance, who isn't out of favor. Take a look at this. Take a look at what Kyle Shanahan had to say about Trey Lance. This is from my article. Trey had that starting position going into the year, Shanahan said. We were real excited about that, and we think he would have had a hell of a year. He only got in 1.25 games, and he went out. Brock played 8 games and won all of them, played at an extremely high level. We believe Trey can be that. I think he would have done it last year if he had stayed healthy. The good thing for him is with Brock being hurt and stuff, he has an opportunity to try and regain that. Guys, I have never seen more lying and misrepresentation of what Kyle Shanahan has said online than this week. And that's saying something because I've seen a lot of that over the past several years, but it's getting worse and worse and worse. For some reason, there's a whole subset of people that just blatantly ignore what Kyle Shanahan has said. And they say, oh, he hates Trey Lance. Just because Brock Purdy, pick number 262, is the leader in the clubhouse, Trey Lance must be garbage in Kyle Shanahan's eyes. But neither John Lynch nor Kyle Shanahan came close to saying that. In fact, I mean, here's the evidence. If you need the evidence, read it up on the screen. He said, we think he would have had a hell of a year if he didn't get hurt. Kyle Shanahan didn't have to say that. But then he points out he only played in 1.25 games. Then he went out. Brock played at an extremely high level, which is a way to essentially explain why he's higher on the pecking order right now than Trey Lance. That makes total sense. It's because he played so well. He played at an extremely high level. Lance didn't play at that high level, and he didn't really have a chance to. But again, here's the line. We believe Trey can be that. Kyle Shanahan, for the second time in one paragraph, said that he believes that Trey Lance can play at an extremely high level. And then for the third time, he says he has an opportunity to try to regain that. So Lance is not out of favor. No, he isn't. And, when these are more quotes from the story that I ran today. I'll read that one a little bit later about quarterback option power. That, really relates directly into what the 49ers believe they have with Trey Lance. And that is one component of a strong quarterback room. But people who are, saying that Trey Lance somehow is out the door automatically just because Brock Purdy with a torn UCL has earned a little bit more deserved praise from his coaches because he's done more in the NFL than Trey Lance. You're looking at this in these binary terms that just do not illustrate the situation. The actual situation is the 49ers really like Brock Purdy, but he's hurt, so there's a lot of uncertainty there. They still really like Trey Lance, but he has been hurt, so he hasn't been able to show what they might like about him. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. And they really like Sam Darnold, but he has yet to play for them, and they don't know exactly how he's going to fit into the system once he actually enters it. So there's a lot of uncertainty there. So the 49ers like three quarterbacks, but there's a lot of uncertainty. So they're like darts being thrown up against the wall, right? They're hoping that one of these guys sticks. In an ideal world, all three will stick up against the wall. In a nightmare world, none of them will stick up against the wall, and the 49ers are in big trouble, and they probably are going to wish they held on to Jimmy Garoppolo. But there's other reasons for not holding on to Jimmy Garoppolo. Most of them are financial that we'll talk about in a little bit. But in all likelihood, the truth is going to end up somewhere in the middle. One of these guys is going to stick up against the wall. One of these darts is going to hit. Maybe two of them is going to hit. One's not going to work. But if you do, you do your best to find the quarterback that is going to fit within the structure of your system, and then you roll with that guy and you insulate yourself from the risk of injury catastrophe. And that's what the 49ers are doing. And that's why it doesn't make any sense for people to just knee-jerk and say that Trey Lance is out of favor just because Brock Purdy got a compliment. It should be looked at as Trey Lance and Brock Purdy and Sam Darnold. That's how the quarterback room last year was. It was Trey Lance and Jimmy Garoppolo and Brock Purdy, and that's why the 49ers made it to the NFC Championship game. In fact, the moment that the and stopped being there, the moment that everybody was hurt, is when the 49ers collapsed. And it's no coincidence. When they had that QB option power, when they had that QB strength, they won. Their roster was strong enough to make it happen. When they didn't, they lost. So as I say that Trey Lance isn't out of favor, I must also say don't discount Sam Darnold. I'm going to find what Kyle Shanahan said about Sam Darnold today. And this is, I think very, very revelatory. I'm going to read this out loud to you in the larger picture of things. Quote from Kyle Shanahan. Sam has as good of a skill set as there is. That's why he went as the third pick in the draft. When you study his play, you can see it too. I don't think he's always been in the best situations. He's always had the ability since his first year of college when we started watching him. There's no reason he can't do it. I've always liked him as an athlete, as a prospect. I like how he throws. I like his athletic ability. Now we're excited to get him with us, get him to work, and see how he fits our offense. Those aren't the words for a quarterback who is just some kind of throwaway signing who is going to be relegated to the bench no matter what. Kyle Shanahan never said that about Nate Sudfeld. He never said that about, I mean, hell, he never said that about Brian Hoyer, and he was a starter in 2017. He never said that about CJ Beathard. He never said that about Nick Mullins, who ended up starting a lot of games for the 49ers. He never said that about Josh Johnson. I mean, he's saying this about a guy who he's legitimately believed to be very physically talented and a very good fit for what he's trying to do ever since Sam Darnold was at USC. So don't discount Sam Darnold in all of this. Again, I talked about this before Kyle Shanahan even spoke. Darnold can make up to $7 million in incentives. That's an $11.5 million contract on the upwards end. That's bigger than the contract that Baker Mayfield signed with Tampa Bay. It's bigger than the contract that somebody like Jacoby Brissett signed this offseason. The upward mobility of this contract speaks volumes. Because Sam Darnold wouldn't have signed a deal with that many incentives and those types of incentives, and they're based on play time and winning, unless he thought there was a chance that he would reach them. So when I first saw the contract, I came on and said, Sam Darnold's absolutely a competitor here for legitimate playing time. And the 49ers are going to need legitimate playing time from a third quarterback if this season goes anything like previous seasons, right? So that they absolutely have to insulate themselves. Everybody was like, that's kind of crazy. I don't think so. It's Sam Darnold. Said, no, Kyle Shanahan tried to trade for this guy 2 seasons ago. Kyle Shanahan loves the physical skill set. He's going to think that Darnold was in a bad situation before, and he's going to think that he can leverage Darnold's skill set in a better situation. And hey, Sam Darnold was really good last year over 6 games for a Carolina team. He turned it around, playing a lot of the similar style, the play action based yak setup that the 49ers play. So lo and behold, that's exactly what Kyle Shanahan thinks. If you want to see it, you could see it again up on the screen. Kyle Shanahan's thoughts on Sam Darnold validate what we thought about the 49ers' thoughts after we saw the contract. All right, another theme of these NFL owners' meetings. Quarterback cost efficiency. Take a look at this from Jed York. Spoke to him today. Can make this a little bit bigger up on the screen for you so you can actually read it if you're on a phone. Stretch it out a little bit wider. We wanted to be able to have a young quarterback on a rookie contract that allows you to be able to say, all right, Javon's kind of a bonus. That's Javon Hargrave. There's a delta between what you're spending on your quarterback versus what everyone is spending on their quarterback. And I hope that one of these guys, Purdy, Lance, or Darnold, gets a massive extension with the San Francisco 49ers at some point. But until then, we're going to make sure that we build this thing around a young quarterback with a very team-friendly contract. I mean, that quote is so strong on so many levels from Jed York. But, one is I hope that one of these guys gets a massive extension with the 49ers. He's including Darnold in this thought process. So everybody's going to have a shot to prove what they have in the chaotic world of football. But then he ends, very, very emphatically. Until then, we're going to make sure that we build this thing around a young quarterback with a very team-friendly contract. Boom. So I talk about the QB cost efficiency at the bottom of the page. That's what the 49ers mean by this. They mean that they're only paying $14.1 million total against the cap for all 3 QBs. Aaron Rodgers is about to get an option bonus that's holding the Packers hostage for what? It's $52 million this year. Yeah, that's just a bonus in his contract, fully guaranteed for 1 season. 49ers are paying 3 quarterbacks $14.1 million total. That allows them to spend money elsewhere. Javon Hargrave. Sam Darnold was, you look at Darnold's deal. It's $3.9 million on the cap hit this year. The $7 million in incentives because of creative contract structuring are not likely to be earned this year. So in case he does earn them, they don't pay it until later. So the 49ers have found a way to bend over backwards to make a promising quarterback room, right? Brock Purdy's promising. Sam Darnold, you have to say, is promising after what he did in Carolina. Trey Lance, he's probably the most polarizing QB now, but I think he's still promising. He's still got that physical skill set that Kyle Shanahan really likes. They found a way to fit this into a cap situation that allows the rest of the roster to thrive, to allows the general manager John Lynch to go out and pick up an absolute stud, a star at the defensive tackle position. To me, that's significant. To the 49ers, it was very significant. They talked about it all owners' meetings, QB cost efficiency. They could do stuff that other teams aren't doing. And to show you that, true end result of this, I was just in Vegas, as you know, this past weekend. 49ers are, I think, the over-under. I think the futures line is set at 11.5 wins this season. They went 13-4 the past year, 10-7 the year before that. And they're the second, number 2 in the NFC, behind only the Eagles as favorites to win the conference title. One can argue that they should be ahead of the Eagles based on the fact that Philadelphia has lost so much talent on the defensive side of the ball, especially. But I digress. The 49ers still have excellent odds, even despite the fact that their quarterback situation is, by the definition of the word, unsettled, right? The QB situation is unsettled, yet the 49ers have the second best odds to win the NFC. To me, that's bonkers, but it illustrates how strong the 49ers roster is, and it illustrates that they've done a good job managing that money that they've saved on the quarterback room by investing it elsewhere into players who are going to be able to make impacts over the rest of the field. And that leads me naturally into the big spend for Javon Hargrave. Initially, John Lynch thought that the 49ers were going to have to restrain themselves this offseason. You don't want to turn into the Rams. You don't want that cap cup to flow over, right? It's like a sink that's filling with water and it's rising toward the top. And you could fill it up with more water at any point when it's still under the ledge. But any water that you fill up now, right, any part of the sink that gets water right now is going to bring you closer to overflowing. And then you have an emergency. The Rams had an emergency. When you overflow, you just got to let it flow out. You got to cut. Rams had to do that. No more Bobby Wagner. He's back with Seattle. No more Leonard Floyd. He's a free agent. No more Jalen Ramsey. He's with the Dolphins. I mean, the Rams finally had to pay up this offseason, and the 49ers never want to hit that area where they overflow the sink. So Lynch thought that they didn't have that inch of space this year, or that 2 inches of space for Javon Hargrave. But what ended up happening is twofold. A, the 49ers found that quarterback room to be extremely affordable. That's allowed them to re-sign a lot of players too here over the past couple of years, because they look back in 2021 at this plan, and that's why they drafted Trey Lance, and that's why they ultimately decided to phase out Jimmy Garoppolo so they can move to the QB on the rookie deal. But B, the 49ers also picked up Brock Purdy in the 7th round, and he's a cost-controlled rookie. So even if Lance is not working out, even if there are questions about that fit and that sustainability moving forward at the NFL level, the 49ers now have 2 QBs on rookie contracts, and they have Sam Darnold on a creative incentive-laden deal that fits within the salary cap for this year that allows the 49ers to turn around and spend big elsewhere. And some of that spending's on Javon Hargrave. But being able to acquire him for the 49ers was twofold. A, they had to have the money left over from not spending that much at the quarterback position. But B, they had to have the blessing of ownership. Because the only way that you fit somebody like Javon Hargrave is if you spread his cap hit out. And this is what I'm going to go back to the Javon Hargrave contract analysis for. The way that you spread out cap hits in the NFL comes through disposable wealth. That's the way that you have to do it. You have to creatively work these contracts and use the fact that the NFL treats signing bonuses as prorations against the salary cap. Here you see Hargrave's contract. Here you could see the cap hits. It's a $21 million a year contract, but the cap hit is only $6.6 million in the first season. The 49ers did that by being willing to pay Javon Hargrave massive signing bonus, $29 million, and a big option bonus, $6 million. So $29 million of money that will hit his account at the snap of a finger over the course of the first 2 years. Most of it, $23 million right now. That allowed them to stretch out the cap hit like an accordion and fit Hargrave into the equation now. So by saving money, by saving room in that sink, and then by creatively rationing the water against the salary cap, the 49ers have been able to stockpile their roster with more blue chip pieces than probably any other team in the NFL. And that is a process that we learned at the owners' meetings, was one that took some people skills. John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan had to go to Jed York and had to say, hey, this is what we're thinking about doing. And Jed York said, okay, I'm willing to give you guys the check for this. I'm willing to give you guys the $29 million. but go out and get an impact player. I don't want a bunch of half-assed guys. He didn't want mediocre players. He wanted an impact player, and the 49ers just picked up one of the best pass rushers in the entire NFL, especially one of the best interior pass rushers in the NFL. More from Jed York. There might be more trades coming for the 49ers because York said today that the 49ers weren't really even looking for a running back at the time that they traded for Christian McCaffrey last year. But the opportunity presented itself in twofold fashion. A, McCaffrey became available. And who would say no to Christian McCaffrey because he's more than a running back if you get him at a good price. And B, the 49ers had so expertly gamed the compensatory system that they were set to have 7 comp picks coming back to them in the 2023 draft. So the Rams were in on Christian McCaffrey when the 49ers traded for him, and that incentivized the 49ers to outbid the Rams because you don't want a division rival getting a star player ahead of you. And the Rams had less draft capital than the 49ers because they hadn't played the compensatory pick process as expertly as the 49ers had. Because of that, the 49ers were able to send a second rounder, a third rounder, a fourth rounder, and a future fifth rounder to the Rams, 4 picks, to the Panthers, 4 picks for Christian McCaffrey. Jed York made the point when we talked that the 49ers have since successfully run another free agency period to set themselves up for at least 4 comp picks plus 1 for Rand Carthon next year through the minority hiring cycle. So the 49ers should have at least 5 compensatory picks next year, which should put them into position again to make a trade if someone becomes available at the right time for a contending 49ers team. Jed York said it himself, unprompted really. He said, we're in position to go for it again because we keep on refilling these draft picks. That's what I learned at the owners meeting. I learned that the 49ers have this calculated aggressiveness. They love how it worked with Christian McCaffrey, and they won't mind doing it again because they keep on replenishing the pool with these compensatory picks. Finally, we're moving into draft season, and reversed draft season is here. And by that, I mean this article. I wrote 2 of them this week. This is the piece that I wrote after talking to John Lynch on Monday. So check this one out. Both of the links are in the description, and now they're both in the comment section. Just copied and pasted there in the comment section. And make sure to check out those links because it's only $1 a month right now for The Athletic. I think you get 12 months, so only $1 a month. And if you subscribe through my article, obviously I get some credit, so that's nice. But anyway, you could support the cause, get on there. Athletic, only $1 a month. But it talked about the fact that reverse draft season is here, and that is 49ers don't have any picks until late in the 3rd round, number 99. And they picked 11 times if they don't trade any away. John Lynch is actually looking at this draft and the prospect pool in reverse order. Normally, he looks at the top picks, the first rounders, and he makes his draft grades and he makes his report and he moves on down. This year, he's starting with the bottom and moving on up because most of the 49ers picks are concentrated lower on. The way that the 49ers formula works, if they're trading away a lot of picks and getting comp picks in return, because comp picks can only be third rounders. They can't be any higher than that. They could be 3rd to 7th rounders. The only way that the 49ers plan works is if they draft well in the middle to late rounds, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th round. So this year, they are especially intent on drafting well in those rounds, and they have a great track record. We talk about George Kittle and Dre Greenlaw and all those guys all the time. Talanoa Hufanga, Brock Purdy, number 262. So the 49ers continue drafting well in the middle to late rounds. They can continue sustaining this formula. So they're going to double down on trying to draft well in those later rounds because this is going to be the ultimate draft where the 49ers have to look at it from the reverse angle. Anyway, that wraps up the NFL owners meetings. I do have to say that the bachelor party was a success. This is my buddy Rob, who's a big Miami fan, at the Circa Sportsbook, watching Miami punch their ticket over Texas to the Final Four for the first time in school history. This is the largest sportsbook in the world. So I figured I'd share the video with you. You can see how nervous he was there. I have another video where he's starting to celebrate, but I got to put that one in there. But anyway, Rob's going to be happy to be on the YouTube channel. That's Circa in Las Vegas. Bachelor party was a success. We did go to the NCAA tournament. We saw Gonzaga get blown up by UConn. We were up on the rooftop of Circa at the big pool party with the sports book. That thing was crazy. And yeah, we had a good time. So it was fun. And it's now time to open this up to a fun 49ers Q&A here from the owners' meetings in Phoenix, Arizona. It has been a hell of a journey for me. There's 7 49ers takeaways from the heavily QB-focused NFL owners meetings up on the screen for you. Make sure to check that out. And let's see your questions in the comments section. Yep, that was Circa, the casino in Vegas. That is the largest sports book. Circa, downtown Las Vegas, owned by Derek Stevens. $1 for 12 months is a great deal. Go ahead and check that out in the description. Go and through either of my 2 articles that are in the description. Mike put them there. I didn't talk to Shanahan about the Zane Gonzalez signing. I talked to John Lynch about the Zane Gonzalez signing. It was my question. And I asked him, is this the signing for kicker, or are you going to do more? And he said, it is a signing at kicker, not the signing. And I pointed out that there's no guaranteed money and that the 49ers gave up hardly nothing, right, to trade for him. They are in no way committed to Zane Gonzalez. I think they're going to bring in more competition, either through the draft or maybe you lure Robbie Gould to re-sign with your football team, in which case you would almost certainly release Zane Gonzalez. But there hasn't been any commitment here. It's like a free lottery ticket with Zane Gonzalez, and probably with a better potential return winning than, return on investment than a lottery ticket. That's going to be 1 in a million. This Zane Gonzalez situation has a much higher possibility of success. He's got a stronger leg than Robbie Gould, not as accurate, but he's younger, and he does have a cannon for a leg. This question's related. I asked Lynch about Gould. No, actually, they didn't mention Gould, and that, this is key. John Lynch went through and mentioned all the departing 49ers free agents, did not mention Robbie Gould. So there's still, a chance that they are embroiled in some talks here. There hasn't been any denial of that here over the past few weeks. So let's wait and see what happens. He might be too expensive, but we're not sure, Robbie Gould. And maybe the 49ers want him at a certain price point. Maybe they can get him at that price point. That's why we're waiting and seeing what happens. No, Brock Purdy did not show up at the owners' meeting party. Did not get to see the bionic arm of Brock Purdy with that big, big brace. Do I think this is the best chance to win the Super Bowl for the 49ers? I think it's a good chance. I think they've got the strongest roster in the league. Last year was a good chance. It got derailed by those QB injuries. I mean, Jed York said it today. You've got to keep on playing around the hoop. If you keep on playing around the hoop, eventually a bucket is going to fall. Mike says the opportunities might dry up for Gould. What positions still need addressing in Lynch and Shanahan's eyes? I think they want to add a little bit more offensive line competition. I think they're going to do that the draft. Maybe a lot more offensive line competition. Right tackle is still tenuous. Think you need more cornerback depth on this football team. Safety, a look into the future would be nice if you're the 49ers, because Tashawn Gibson's going to be 33 years old. And obviously kicker. I don't think they're going to go after wide receivers in free agency. No, they might draft somebody, though. And then there's a question about Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk, they're going to pick up the 5th-year option, and I think he's going to play on that this season. And then you're going to have a hard decision to make, and this year is going to determine a lot about Brandon Ayuk's future. If it's another big year, he's going to command big, big money. And then you're going to see if the cap is growing enough to be able to fit him as part of your A-list core, or if you're going to have to move on because you say he's a B-lister. But you could still be a good player and be a B-lister, right? It's, those two aren't mutually exclusive. I think you just take this one step at a time. Right now, Brandon Ayuk remains under contractual control, so there's no reason to freak out as the 49ers move forward. I think the 49ers actually might use all 11 picks. They might trade up once if they really like somebody in the second round, but I don't think they mind maximum dart throwing. Get a bunch of darts, throw it up against the wall, and see what sticks. That's part of the formula for success in the lower rounds of the draft. If somebody gets hurt or if the 49ers lose a receiver, maybe Danny Gray has a little bit more of an impact. But he had some work to do to surpass other players on the depth chart last year as a rookie. And the thing is, just to be blunt, the 49ers had too much veteran talent in front of him. Eric Gomes has hit the like. I love it. I think the 49ers will definitely go for a tight end in the draft. I think they've essentially said that this year. And I think there's room on that roster for a rookie tight end. They've re-signed Ross Dwelley, but there's room on that roster for a rookie tight end. If offered, do the 49ers trade Trey Lance for a first-round pick? It depends on who they see worthy of a first-round pick in the draft, first of all. Which player does that first-round pick translate to? So that's one thing. And then this is also relying on this actually becoming, fact. Would somebody offer a number one for Trey Lance? He's only really been hurt in his NFL career, and he's only shown inconsistency. Is somebody willing to pay a premium, which a first round pick would be, for a quarterback like Trey Lance and the track record that he's brought to the table? I don't know. But I think if somebody is willing to pay, that might be a price that the 49ers listen to. But they're going to have to be blown away. They like their quarterback depth. They like their quarterback option power. They will have to be blown away. That's the point that Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch have both made. It's just business. It just is business. 49ers are borrowing $120 million from the NFL to upgrade their stadium. So that's probably coming. I don't think this is gonna the NFL has changed this to one cut down rule. Instead of cutting from 90 to 85 to 80 to 53, they're just cutting from 90 to 53 on August 29th. I don't think it makes that big of a difference. You're cutting back of the roster guys anyway in those first two cuts, so I don't think this is going to change things. Mike said it might mean that fewer people watch our channel on the two initial cut down days, but I think it will be negligible. Well, I think the 49ers are talking Lance up. But I think they're just being realistic, to be honest. I think here's the thing, like, people don't need to argue all the time about what the 49ers might be doing because they just leave all their options on the table. They're leaving themselves business option power. They'll listen to offers for anybody, and they're open about that. So they're not ruling anything out on the trade front, right? And then they're also open about the fact that they don't know what they have in Lance, but they love his talent. They're not sure what they have in Darnold, but they love his talent. And then they semi-know what they have in Purdy over the 8-9 game sample, but he's hurt. So the 49ers are openly talking about their uncertainty. They're actually just being honest in these situations. I don't think that they're going to put a dome on Levi's because it's in the San Jose Airport landing path, and anything that you add to the top of that stadium, it would be against FAA regulations. The stadium is already as tall as it possibly can be. It might be easier for players, yes, but the earlier cuts do help some players in that if you're a back of the roster guy, you get cut earlier, so you kind of beat the line as far as waiting for other teams to scoop you up. I'm not sure if the 49ers are going to go after one more D lineman, but the longer they wait, the more the price should drop. So you're talking about Leonic Ngakoue, Leonard Floyd. Maybe you're able to plug one of those guys in like the third, fourth wave of free agency further down the road. I do know the 49ers are counting pennies right now because they want to keep that sink from overflowing. All right, cool. Nice 30-minute show. Everybody, thank you for joining today. It was a whole heck of a lot of fun. The 49ers Q&A was good. We wrapped up the NFL owners meetings. Oop, there I am. I want to put this up on the screen so all of you have a chance to check out the work. There is today's article. There's the one from the day before. And obviously we got some excerpts, and all of them talked about the salary cap a couple weeks ago. It's all there. It's in the comment section and in the description. Make sure to check it out. $1 a month right now for The Athletic. That is the most in-depth coverage from here in Phoenix. I'm on the ground doing some work from the hotel room that you will find. Everybody, thank you for watching. We'll talk to you next time. This has been the show up on YouTube. Everybody take care and have a good night. Bye now.